home effort yesterday afternoon. Really sharp with a lot of things. Offensively, got some things going in transition. Some of the set plays were working. Our screening was a little bit better. Liked what we did there. Overall, I thought what I liked the most was the consistency with the effort level. That was good. A lot of guys played very hard. Our scouting report stuff was better. That continues to improve, and so we're getting closer. I really liked what the guys did yesterday, and getting closer. With that, I would take any questions.
The last two home games, you've really gotten after it. I know the guys were probably hurt by losing a couple early at
Right.
home in conference. I mean, is it more about attitude now at home and saying we're going to defend our home?
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. We weren't playing quite as well. Indiana State and Evansville, and both those teams are good. At the time, neither of those teams had lost much. We didn't play well enough against Indiana State. Still had it one possession with a minute to go, and a lot to do because Indiana State is good, and they've played well. Evansville, we didn't play real good in the first half. Played a good second half, and had a lead under a minute. So still had chances in those games, and I think when that happens on your home floor, it stings. And I think that's part of why we've played well the last two here in the McLeod Centers, because that hurts. And we've got enough guys that have been around. They understand what it means to protect your home floor, and they understand what it means in terms of where you're going to finish when it comes to playing well at home and winning your home games. So that part of their mentality has really paid off the last two games.
What concerns you most about Southern Illinois?
Well, a couple things. They've always got four guards on the floor, and Daniels is just getting back at the center position for them, and he's a big, strong guy inside, and has provided an interior presence for them, and that's helped them as he's returned. But their four-guard lineup, and then when Daniels or their backup center, when they're not on the floor, they play five guards. And Evansville has been undersized and a lot of times played four guards, but we haven't played against anybody that's played five guards, and they've been good at it. They at Wichita State, a very close game. At Bradley, a very close game. They beat Indiana State. Last night they're down big in the first half, and they I think 28 at one point, and they get it all the way back to 12 with enough time left to get back in that game. So their undersized lineup is going to be a challenge for us. And then it's a team that they play extremely hard. They play with a lot of energy, and they play extremely hard.
What's been the biggest difference in those two home games, scoring over 80 points at the offensive end? What's been the thing that's changed the most that it's been so effective?
I think from the two previous games, at Illinois State and against Evansville, getting our lineup back with having Dion in that starting lineup again, I think is a big part of it. So Dion, AJ, and Mark are on the floor together. All three of those guys can handle the ball in transition. All three of them can use the ball screen. Dion's play at the point, in the two home games, if you look at his numbers in those two games, it's really kind of driven our offense. He's played very well in those two games. And then the pace at which we're playing at in those two games, and even throw the Creighton game in between. The biggest difference maybe in the game at Creighton was Dion was in foul trouble in the first half and sat for a long time and never really became a part of that basketball game. And then the other two, since he got back in that starting lineup, are the two that we're talking about, where we've played well. And it's not just Dion by himself being in the lineup. It's the combination of Dion, AJ, and Mark being on the floor together. Those three guys are able to make a lot of things happen for us. And the other thing I would say is in the last two games, Jake has provided a lot of offense for us around the basket. At Creighton, did a great job scoring on the block and getting to the free throw line. And then again last night in the second half, when we really stretched that lead, Jake was a big part of that, scoring on the block for us. And so that's something that can really help us going forward.
Talk about that killer instinct. I mean, you didn't let off the gas in the game. Either one of the Bradley or the Drake game. I mean, Drake has come off an impressive one.
I think with this team, their confidence is really starting to come along. I think it's grown quite a bit in the last 10 days to 2 weeks. Part of that to do with winning a couple games, and part of it to do with just playing so well. In the Bradley game, we played well at Creighton. Not well enough, but we played well. and then again yesterday against Drake. You can feel their confidence changing and growing, and I think when that happens, not only do you play better, but you play harder. You know, when you feel good about what you're doing, and you've got confidence in what you're doing, and you got a better feel for where you're supposed to be, and when those things work for you, you play harder. And I think that's what's happening with our team right now.
Talk about the conference, on any given night, it seems like, I mean, anybody can take down it. And someone's gonna, I mean, other than Creighton and Wichita State beating each other, it's not.
Right. You know, those two have shown through the early part of the conference schedule that they're, you know, right now they're better than the rest of us. But on a given night, I think the rest of us can beat either of those teams. But when it comes to the other 8 of us, you better play good, because if you don't, you're going to get beat by anybody. You know, and there's been some, as I mentioned with Southern Illinois, there's been some real close. They've been in some close games. You know, at Wichita State to have that to a 5 or 6 point game, at Bradley's a 3-point game. They beat Indiana State, who I think is 5-2 right now, and a team that beat us on our home floor. So, you know, record and where you are in the standings really means nothing. You've got to play well, and what I like is we're playing good basketball right now. That needs to continue for us.
Clarksville used to be a very tough environment when they had some really strong teams. I know the last couple of years they've been a bit down, but do you expect that same intense environment with you?
Yeah, and you know, with when we go back there, Wednesdays, of course, being here, but yeah, they've Coach Hinson is interjected some energy back into their program. You know, their guys are playing with some more energy and playing very hard, and so much of that comes from Barry. And then they put a lot into renovating their arena, and they've changed the feel of it. And it's always a hard place to play, and it's going to continue to be that way.
You mentioned Jake Cook playing more inside, scoring inside. He's shooting a lot less threes this year. Has that been a bit of a change in philosophy with how to use him at the offensive end this year?
A little bit of that. He worked more this summer and this fall on getting things done inside the 3-point line, and in certain games it's kind of come and gone until recently, where we've had back-to-back now. And the other part of it, he hasn't. He's put a lot of time in still. He's shooting a lot of shots outside of practice, but he hasn't quite felt right about his 3-point shot. You know, I think he's real close, but to feeling good about his 3-point shot, but he hasn't quite maybe felt the same as he has in years past. And we'd like to see him get to that point where he continues to do what he's doing for us inside the 3-point line. And I've told him, and he knows. You know, I'd like to see him take a few more threes. But he's got such a good feel for it. He knows. You know, he's smart, and he knows when he's going to make one, and when it doesn't feel quite right. So I leave that up to him a little bit. But he also knows that we need him to be aggressive and look to take those 3-point shots when they're available for us.
Does Seth Tuttle have the green light from 3?
He does. Yeah.
Who doesn't have the green light?
You know, Austin's getting close. He threw up a 17-footer in practice the other day. He's getting close.
After Southern Wednesday, you go on a big road trip to Indiana State, Evansville. Just talk a little bit about that 2-game swing that you'll be out on.
Yeah, that both those teams have played well, and both teams are Evansville, very experienced team. You know, Indiana State coming into the year, you know, lost guys, and they're playing without any seniors, but they're playing like an experienced team. And you know, winning on the road is hard enough. When you go see teams that are playing good and they have experience, that makes it even harder. And so we're going to have to have it all together. And as I've talked about more the last few days, and certainly last night and today, you know, we're getting closer to where our guys expect to be, and from a confidence standpoint and from a level of play standpoint and how hard we're playing, you know, we're getting closer. I think I've talked quite a bit about not being as consistent as we need to be. I'm just about past that now. We've played good now for close to 2 weeks, and with the exception of the half against Evansville. Now we're still making some mistakes. We still got some things that we need to do better, some individual plays, but from a playing hard, doing things right for the majority of the time, stringing some possessions together, Gary, we're getting close. And I like the fact that our guys are gaining confidence in what we're doing. They're gaining confidence in each other, and we're going to have to have all that on Wednesday. It's going to be a different kind of game Wednesday because of that undersized lineup and how hard Southern plays. That's going to be different, and we're going to have to really bring it Wednesday. And then, like I said, you go on the road and you see two teams that are playing good. They've got good players, really well coached, and they're experienced. And that's those are hard games to win on the road.
Has the challenge been for you this year, the fact that you have so many pieces, so many guys contributing and have the ability to contribute and that you need to contribute, that just getting them all on the same page at the same time?
That's been part of the growth of this team is getting everybody on the same page, getting them all playing well at the same time. I think part of that is the guys on the bench with Bohannon and Nate and Max. They're really their first year guys, and those three guys have been in and out of the rotation. Bohannon has been in the rotation a lot. Max and Nate kind of been in and out of the rotation, but those guys are they're learning, and so that's been part of it. We've had a couple different lineups, with either an injury or the flu or some circumstances outside of that where we've had a different starting lineups here and there, just some of that stuff, and it feels like we've moved past a lot of that, and the guys have got a little bit more momentum, and as I've talked about, their confidence continues to grow, and we're getting close to everybody being on the same page, and that excites me.
You mentioned
Yeah.
You mentioned that Southern Illinois will play 4 guards. I think at times they've also used 5 guards on
Right.
the floor. What do you anticipate your lineup? Can you still play big if you want, or do you feel you'll have to try and match up with them guard for guard?
If I had to guess at this point, there'll probably be some of both. We're going to start the same way with Jake and Seth inside against their 4-guard lineup and Daniels, and depending on how rotations go and who they've got on the floor and how we're playing against it with our lineup of having 2 bigs on the floor. We'll have to see how some of that plays out, but we're going to start the same way and continue to do what we've done and see if we can't use that to our advantage. Dick?
Coach, can you speak at all about how the progress of our recruits are going?
The recruiting class that we signed, the guys that are seniors in high school, that group, yeah, they those guys are doing well. They're all, I'm trying to think so I don't say, those 2 guys are winning. Bennett's winning, Clint's winning. The 4 guys that are playing, their 3 teams are winning a lot of games, and those guys are playing well. Robbie's coming back from that ACL injury, and his progress is good. He's on the floor shooting jump shots, moving around, doing a lot of things. I don't know yet when he'll return to action. I know he's anxious, hoping to get back and play a couple games before it gets to tournament time for him and his team. But the other 4 guys are really doing well, and their teams are playing very well, and they're winning a lot of games.
Did Matt Morrison try to lobby with you to get suited up at halftime?
He picked up that injury, making a hustle play, a defensive play for us in practice. He came from a long ways and dove on the floor and was just making a great defensive play. And unfortunately, picked up that injury and it got better, and now it's kind of stuck again. Hopefully we can get him back on the practice floor soon. Anybody else? Thank you.